Okay. So this morning we're talking about the buyer specialist, and we're gonna go through the job description, and we have lots of scripts, so we're gonna learn a lot today, and I want it to be conversational, so I'm gonna participate. I'm not concerned about you all. Everybody that I text, I make sure, because I know you're gonna participate, you're gonna ask questions, and you'll have feedback and good information to share as well. So the first thing is the job description. So Carlos, when you think of a buyer specialist, tell me kind of how you would define it as a buyer specialist.
Working solely with buyers and mastering the buyer consultation.
Very good. Very good. Susan, you have anything additional that you would add to that?
Just
A buyer specialist.
you, like you said, you need to master it and you need to make sure and make the people feel comfortable and treat them like you would want to be treated. When they think of buying a house, they think of you and they tell people that.
Right.
You want to be wowed.
Right. I think that when we end up trying to do all things for all people, we lose a lot of the specifics. There is no specialty. You know, so we kind of end up being the jack of all trades, and that way we're not truly focusing in and making sure that all of these questions, because when we go through all of these steps and these forms and the scripts, it's difficult to know the scripts for everything, because you have for sell by owner scripts, you have for the seller scripts, you have a past client script, you have a first time buyer script, you know, so it can get a bit lengthy if you're trying to do all things to everybody else. Can you think of anything else, Melvin, just when you think buyer specialist, anything that we haven't said that you would add?
A buyer specialist are, you know, in my mind, somebody that's doing the 100-day buyers specialist KW training, 100 days of it, 30 days of it, whatever.
What does that look like to you?
It's just so much training, so much, and it's for every 30 days or for every 20 days, they have different kind of training you have to take, or not training, but, you know, stuff that others learn.
Right. Goals and things that we know we want to accomplish within a 30-day period, and then within the next 30 days, and then within the next, 39, 40 days.
And the main thing is just you. When you think buyer specialist, you want your people to think of you and nobody else. And if they hear someone talking about a realtor, oh, you need to call Carlos. You know, I mean, you need to be, by golly, if that's what you're gonna do, you need to do it and make people know that's what you do.
Right. How do we, when we're actually, as a consumer, no matter what it is, whether it was buying a house or if it's any other type of product or a vehicle or anything, how do we look for people? How do we look for the person to represent us or the place we want to go when we're going to make a purchase? How do we look for that?
Knowledge.
We're looking for knowledge.
And make sure they know what they're doing.
Right.
Now.
Right.
I think you sell yourself before you actually talk to a person. So if you're energetic and enthusiastic from afar, I'm like, oh yeah, I like her.
Okay, so personality and the body language says a lot. Okay. Melvin, can you think of anything? When you're actually looking to buy a product, how do you search for that person to help you make that purchase? Y'all think of something else, and you just jump in there.
KW, I don't know if you see anybody you meet, are you talking about like whenever you
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter what it is. When I went to buy a vehicle, I wanted the best deal. So I wanted, who's saying that they're gonna give me the best deal? I also looked for somebody that had a lot of inventory, because if they had a lot of inventory, more than likely, they will give you a good deal.
Right.
Because they have the ability, if you buy in bulk, you're kind of able to give more of a cut. It's kind of like Sam's, that wholesale kind of deal. Something else I look for are credentials. If I'm going to the doctor, I want to be sure, okay, well, I'm going to ask other people, who do you know that I should go to if it's for my need? Who should I take my children to if it's the eye doctor? Who's the best pediatrician? If I'm going to have my heating and air done, I want somebody that's licensed, bonded, and insured. If it's the remodeling guy, is he truly a contractor? Is he licensed, insured? Insured and bonded. You want someone that has credentials. So when people look for real estate agents, do you think that they look for maybe something at the end of our name? It may not be MD, but are they kind of looking for some credentials there? So when we label ourselves as a buyer specialist, that's a credential. right there that lets these people know I truly specialize in working specifically with buyers. So here's the KW description of the buyer specialist. The buyer specialist job description is to prospect and follow up, present to and service buyers. Prospect, we're looking for them. We're going to follow up, we're staying in contact, constant communication with them. We're going to present to, so that buyer presentation that you're speaking of, Carlos, and then we're going to service them. So that's throughout the whole entire process from contract to close, whether we have a large team, a small team, or it's us alone. We still have contract to close. This results in effective conversion rates for leads into appointments. When we actually are specialists working with buyers, we prospect, we follow up, we present to them, and we service them, it's easy to retain and it's easy to get continual business and to convert to appointments.
And I think follow-up is probably the most important in that whole sentence. Because you meet them, but if you don't continue to follow up with them, they'll go with someone else who can present it and service them.
So those
You
can be
gotta
two
follow up.
great challenges, and I will definitely speak to that. Actually prospecting and lead follow-up, they go hand in hand, but at the same time, you can continue to prospect so much that you don't have, and you don't take the time to actually follow up, or you forget about people. You know, so that's why it's great to be a specialist. And if you stay in one lane and you don't have to, after you talk to your buyers, you have to call your sellers, this can be a great benefit to actually specialize. So this leads to effective conversion, and it makes us get appointments, so people that will actually commit to us with the buyer's agreement and the buyer's agreement into an actual purchase contract. So back to the job description. This is the second thing that Keller Williams says. Develops expert knowledge regarding mortgage financing, neighborhood, schools, and issues regarding home ownership. So issues regarding home ownership could be the rates right now, or rural development not closing within a certain amount of time. So they're looking for us to be the expert that knows what's going on. We have to know a little bit about everything, about the transaction, from the inspector to the lender to the appraiser, all of those things. We have to have an idea of what their jobs are. Next, we provide high-level fiduciary needs analysis and coordinate a time-efficient home search process. So we're not just agents that are going to meet with the buyer and we're trying to get them in and get them out as quickly as we can. We don't want to necessarily extend our time with the buyer if it's unnecessary, but we are actually going to be there. When you service someone, what do you think of when you say service? Service is not McDonald's. Is it?
No.
Service is portico. Service, real service is, what's the next, a very nice restaurant. Logan's would be more like service. Would be more like service. So you're not looking for something where you're just gonna swing in and swing out. So we have to remember that. Every client wants to feel serviced, right? Even though I may not want that pair of shoes, I would appreciate somebody touching bases with me and checking with me to be sure. Okay, let's see if she needs some help. I don't want to just stand there and, because I'll turn to my kids and I'll say, well, they didn't say hello. They didn't even acknowledge me, so I know I'm not going to get good service if they didn't even acknowledge me in the beginning. The fourth thing is we consult with the clients to ensure that fiduciary service of the real estate transaction from the initial contract to close actually takes place and it makes sense to the buyer. Then we're going to effectively negotiate for all of our buyer clients. We talked a little bit about, we know what the 80-20 rule is. Ultimately, 20% of what we do brings us the money that we make, right? So 20% is the action, and the results is 80%. 80%, the remaining amount, actually brings us 20% of the results. So that would include sending out faxes, running a contract from here to there. Now that could be a 20%, but for the most part, we can actually email, scan in documents and things like that to be a little bit more efficient and bring it on up to 2013. Goal categories, the job description of the buyer specialist includes some tasks which fall into the 80% category and some that fall into the 20% category. The listing specialist is the same. The key goal for the buyer specialist are these: prospect to hit your monthly lead generating target, So if we don't have a target, then we're going to establish that today. And I know you probably have some goals, and you can share a little bit of that with us, from your 411, of what your target is for the rest of this year. And we can all kind of, edit that today. So we're going to prospect to hit our monthly lead generation target. We're going to present enough buyer consultations and convert those appointments to reach our monthly goal of signed buyer agency, what we call it buyer's agency agreement, or signed buyer representation agreements. So we got to lead generate to even get the consultation. Fourth, we're going to conduct efficient home searches for our buyers. Efficient, when I think efficient, that means that I'm doing it at a high level. When I do it at a high level, what are you thinking? If you're showing a buyer efficiently, you're doing an efficient home buyer search, what does that look like?
You're not just throwing them on a drip. You're like physically checking the email list every day, detailing certain specific things they need and sending them that one, not
So
just jumping on a drip.
that's service, that's true service. And it also would mean I'm not showing them 10 houses if I can show them 2. So we're breaking that down. Write offers for the buyer and stay engaged in the negotiating until a contract to purchase is signed by all parties. Let's talk about the 411. You actually have that in the set of papers for today. It's about the 4th or 5th page. So I'm going to explain to us again what the 411 is for. The 411 is not a to-do list. It's your to-have list. So you have your monthly, you have your yearly or your annual, your monthly, and your weekly goals. So the 411 is a reflection of your top priorities or your big rocks. While I'm talking to you, you can turn that paper over, and I want you to begin to make notes of some things that you think about as I'm kind of describing this. So the 411 is not a to-do list, it's a to-have list. What's the first thing that comes to your mind to have? And I want you to tell me, I want you to write that down on your paper. It can be personal, that can be business, that can be your job. You know that there's a difference between your business and your job. Your job is the buyer specialist. Your business is real estate, or your business is customer service. And then you have your personal, and maybe you even have your spiritual. But what was the first thing when I said it's not a to-do list, it's a to-have list? What would you like to have by the end of 2013? Just starting with the first thing. This is going to help us to establish that 411. So if that's more personal time, then that will be one of those. You don't have to categorize this yet. Once we go back and we begin to put it on our 411, we'll be able to categorize it and place it in the right place. It's not a to-do list. It's a to-have. What do I want to have? Not what I want to do, what do I want to have? Is it an amount of money? So the 411 is a reflection of your top priorities. What are the priorities? When you think, yeah, just as much as you think, what are your priorities for 2013? By December the 31st, before you drink your champagne, before you give a hug or a kiss at the end of the year, or for the striking of 12 o'clock, what do you want to know that you could look back at 2013 and establish? It may have nothing to do with business. It may have nothing to do with your job. It may have all to do with just personal.